Greetings, and welcome to the 80 Level Roundtable podcast. In each episode, host Kirill Tokarev invites video game industry leaders to talk about the world of game development. No topic is off limits as long as it relates to video game development. New episodes are in the works, so remember to follow us or subscribe and share with someone you know will also enjoy the podcast.
Start off, can you do like a little intro? Tell us a bit about yourself, what you have been doing before, what you're doing right now, and kind of what's going on.
Yeah, my name is Jonathan Tippett. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm the founder and CTO and CEO of Exosapien Technologies. I come from a background of medical device research and sort of high-performance hydraulics and fuel cells, which has led me into the large-scale powered exoskeleton space that we now occupy.
So, can you tell us a little bit about this thing that you're doing, and maybe do like a little overview of what is it? Like, is it a robot, or is this just like an exoskeleton? What is the difference? Because I guess for the majority of us, it's all the same.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, this project actually had its inception as an art project, making a statement about the importance of keeping humans in control of our technology. Its maiden name, if you will, was Prosthesis the Anti-Robot. And that project was founded for the specific purpose of expanding and celebrating human skill in unison with technology. It comes from my background as a mountain biker and a snowboarder, practitioner of martial arts. I rode motorcycles. And all of these things have moments of flow and focus that need to be earned through extended practice and extended training. And what I wanted to do is take my skills as an engineer and create a new human experience that produced that flow state that comes with a sort of technology-enhanced extreme sport, but in a new form factor, in an anthropomorphous form factor. And that was kind of the inception story of giant powered mech suits that ultimately taps into, generations old human desire to be a giant. And although the project itself and the technology itself has its own origin story and my life story, when I sort of emerged with the form factor that we now have, which coincidentally attained a Guinness World Record as being the world's largest four-legged exoskeleton, I realized that we were actually tapping into and relating to like a whole human, a historical human fantasy, desire. There's people have desired to fly, and that has begot airplanes and jetpacks. People have desired to be giants, and that has begot giant powered mech suits, which we are now the pioneers of.
So tell us a little bit about this mech suit that you're developing. So it is very heavy. So my question is, how are you able to make it move and make it, solid so it doesn't break down, and kind of like the engineering behind it, because it seems like a very robust and again heavy construction. I don't really know how you guys make it, so maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so from a technical perspective, central to the machine is the human exoskeletal interface. So the machine has no autonomy, no gyros, or ability to sort of walk or balance by itself. The design came from the pilot out. So we started with a human exoskeletal interface. We put a protective cage around it. We put an all-electric power plant on it because we feel that's the power source of the future. It's also a lot more robust and flexible than any kind of internal combustion solutions there were. And that sort of established the scale of the machine. The size of the legs and the power of the actuators were derived through the engineering process to ensure that it had enough power to actually jump. We have jumped the machine 1 inch off the ground all 4 feet at once, which isn't bad for 4,000 kilograms. And the pilot feels every move. They feel the weight and the position of the machine. They are inextricably connected positionally and with force feedback real time to the machine. So when the machine shifts weight, the pilot feels it in their forelimbs. So the pilot's arms control the outside legs of the machine, and the pilot's legs control the inside legs of the machine. And all the machine really does is amplify the pilot's strength by about 50 times. And from there, it's all up to the pilot. Learning and appreciating the dynamics of the machine, the balance of the machine. One of the greatest technical challenges for us was developing a hydraulic and electronic control system. It's a combination of code and electronics and hydraulic circuitry that creates a sporty feel. There's a lot of hydraulic technology that is aimed at power and precision, like in construction applications and cranes and materials handling. But we needed to go off script and develop a control system that really optimized for the feel that the pilot had. And that took quite a few years in the field to sort of fine tune. So what we have now is a stable, robust, force and positional feedback motion control platform, mobility platform, if you will, that opens up applications across the board.
So are these exoskeletons, are they customizable? Like, are they scaled up, scaled down? Like, you want to get more arms, more legs, or are there like different models that you're providing? Like, how does that?
Yeah, in terms of custom applications, this is really a blank slate. I mean, this is the machine that we have now. Our flagship prototype, Prosthesis, is a 4,000 kilogram, 4 meter tall machine. And I think that the direction that we would go is scale it down a little bit. Right now, it's got 4 legs that you control with your 4 limbs, and it's got 4 independently controllable impact-absorbing bumper bars, front and back. So you can fall over frontwards and backwards. It's totally harmless. It's actually quite fun. It's one of the training exercises we have new pilots do. Is we call it fall training, and you just fall over, face plant, back plant, to get used to the fact that you're essentially indestructible in there. So you also have control over the position of those bumper bars from your thumbs. And this particular prototype was not designed to have any utilitarian purpose. It was literally designed as a human experience machine and as a mobility platform with the end goal of creating a competitive race between mech suits, between pilots wearing mech suits. So when the machine started coming in handy unexpectedly, it was pretty exciting. There was a moment where we actually went out to the desert to film, glamour shots of the machine and the pilot and the whole kind of desert racing experience. And I got the truck stuck in the sand. There's a YouTube video on our channel, us doing this whole deployment, and I got the truck stuck in the sand. And so we had to pull the mech off the trailer, walk around to the front of the truck, and we pulled our whole truck and flatbed trailer out of the sand. And carried on with the film shoot. So it became apparent pretty early on that this was an extremely utilitarian motion platform, even though our first goal is going to be, already is the human experience aspect of it. We're already selling pilot training experiences to people, and our first goal as we build the next generation of the machines is going to be to have a race. Which would be like a giant complex obstacle course, like a sort of a parkour course or an American Ninja Warrior course, but in giant powered mech suits.
These machines, they do have like a speed, right? So they move at like 30 kilometers per hour or something.
So this prototype, the top speed that I've managed to achieve as the world's best mech pilot so far, is 6 kilometers an hour. Now, 6 kilometers an hour is a healthy walking pace. Our cameraman described it as faster than he can walk backwards over the kind of terrain that this machine can walk over. So, the limitations of the speed of the machine are partly technical. This machine is our first prototype, and it has technical limitations, but they're also substantially related to pilot skill. This machine, for example, has 2 walking gaits. One is called the one step, and the machine sort of steps 1 foot at a time, and the other is the gorilla gait, which is what we see as the avenue to higher speed, where you're walking 2 legs at a time, loping like a gorilla. And I've only achieved that half a dozen times, and every time I do, I get a little bit better. So the potential for the speed of this prototype is maybe not too much greater than 6 kilometers an hour. But the next generation machine, we're going to address all of the technical limitations that limit it on an engineering side. as well as pay a lot of attention to the ergonomics and the training regime, the pedagogy of how we train pilots, the skills and drills that we use to, and we're going to bring in pro athletes, not middle-aged engineers, to operate these things, to attain like much more agile performance and higher speeds.
Can you talk a little bit about the design? Because we'll add like videos of for our recordings, people can see it. But if you talk a little bit about inspirations, maybe the kind of materials and how materials kind of influence the way we can design it, like the open constructions and all these kind of elements that will create the look of it, influence its performance and other.
Yeah, the aesthetic and technical origin story is an interesting one, because the fundamental premise of the project was to create the simplest walking machine possible. We were very budget constrained. It was essentially a community project on my dime. And I wanted to understand what is the simplest way we can make a walking machine that is exoskeletally controlled, not automated, not mechanized. I made a mechanized spider a few years earlier called the Mondo Spider, which was kind of a gateway project. It was like a 2,000-pound electric walking spider, but it was clockwork. It required no skill. This machine, I asked myself, well, what is the simplest, what are the fundamental requirements to make something walk? You need 2 legs at least, and they need to change length and swing back and forth. So I experimented with designs that had telescoping legs, and decided that at this scale, that's pretty challenging from a fabrication perspective. It's easy for telescoping structures to get fouled with debris, and there's a lot of precision required to make robust, smooth-moving telescoping structures. So I decided for a hinged structure. That was also informed by the fact that it would look way cooler. Basically, the design influences that led to the current form factor it's essentially a cross between a trophy truck, an excavator, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex. That's kind of what you get when you mash all those things together and add like a healthy dose of engineering and inspiration. So the hinged leg structure, like the basic leg structure, was just the simplest way that I could make a leg that changed length. And then it swings back and forth, and I with the minimum degrees of freedom, with just bending knees and swinging hips, there's no in and out motion of any of the legs. We needed 4 legs because you can't achieve bipedal balance with that few degrees of motion. So we ended up with a 4-legged machine because the pilots have 4 limbs. Obviously, you can make a 6-legged machine, but then you would depart from the one-to-one human relationship. The evolutionary path of this technology is absolutely towards fully anthropomorphous. I mean, the technology that we've now developed and patented is expandable to any number of degrees of freedom. So we are, over the course of the next few years, going to do successive iterations that ultimately result in a bipedal anthropomorphous mech suit.
So what about the materials that are used for the production? Is it mostly steel, or is there something real fancy like aluminum?
Yes. Absolutely. So the materials that we chose were sort of derived from the sort of sports off-road sports industry. Chromoly tube frame. It's a well-established structural paradigm. It's a field repairable metal. You can do engineering analysis on triangulated truss frames quite accurately. So it enabled us to evolve the design quite far in an analytical context before we started cutting metal. And of course, it's just easy to fabricate with steel. So this whole structure, the chassis and the legs, all of the major components are chromoly steel, which is a pretty high performance steel used in hot rods and airplanes and dune buggies. And I had to get some carbon fiber in there, so the body panels that support the pilot are carbon fiber, which is more than just a glamour decision. It actually creates a really nice elastic conformality to the and cushioning to the pilot. Everything else that we can get away with is aluminum, just to try and keep the weight down. Weight is king in any racing machine. So those are the 3 major materials in our palette now, but we see a future 10 years, 20 years down the road where these things are built like F1 cars. Like, it's just carbon fiber from top to toe, a fraction of the weight. If you look at the evolution of mountain bikes from the 80s to now, that's the kind of evolution we expect to see. in mech suits over the next 10 to 20 years.
So can we talk a little bit about the application and about the sports angle that you discussed? Can I talk a little bit about this vision? So I'm guessing these are like parkour races between these giant machines, kind of like everybody become spectators and watch television, sell tickets, or just kind of tell us a bit more about how you see it right now, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about application. It would be nice to go like with some kind of like a story that you saw, blah blah blah, on TV, like Monster Truck.
Yeah.
On TV, I was like inspired, and I thought, wow, what if this could be robots, or if I saw Pacific Rim, for example, and I thought, wow,
yeah,
it's kind of like we can do that.
Yeah.
It's nice to go with some kind of story.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, the story of the evolution of this concept ties back to all of the things I did as a kid. It ties back to some of the sculptural work I saw at Burning Man, as a matter of fact, where I saw static sculptures of dinosaur legs made of car parts. And I thought, well, that's a beautiful sculpture, and as a mechanical engineer, I can make that move. And as a sort of an extreme sports enthusiast, I could also be the pilot who was responsible for dynamic control of it. And that was kind of the kernel that led to the idea of a mech suit. Now, in the back of my mind were all of the iconic mechs through the ages, Ed 209 in RoboCop, Power Loader in Alien, Neil Blomkamp's mech suit in District 9 was super inspirational because it's so agile. Of course, Pacific Rim, but the scale is beyond what we're aiming for. The Matrix. So all of these just sort of fueled my excitement. Probably one of the most inspiring ones was the Avatar amp suit. That was 2009. Now, I'd been working on this thing for 3 years at that point, but that really put wind under my wings and inspired me to make this become a reality. So when I think of what a mech race is going to be like, the goal for us as we sort of develop the format for the race is, what can a mech suit do that nothing else can do? So a mech suit can lift and push. It can climb. It can cross terrain. It's not the fastest thing in the world. It's not going to beat a trophy truck. But as soon as the trophy truck meets a 3-foot wall, it gets parked and the mech keeps going. Or maybe it's a huge trench. So the format for the racing league will be these huge, complex technical obstacle courses in stadiums that will really highlight the unique versatility of the mech suit. And it'll invite creativity from the pilots because they're not automated machines. It really is a human race, an augmented human race. So you'll have maybe an obstacle and there'll be somebody in a mech suit who's really good at climbing over stuff or pushing stuff out of the way. Maybe someone else is faster and they go around it. And there's a sort of a tactical strategic element. We're picturing like 5 mech suits on a course at once, just all at a starting line, off you go. Officially non-contact, but maybe they hit every now and then. It's not going to be a wrestling match at first. It will be a race from A to B. But as we learn more about the capability of the machines and they become sort of more robust and the pilots become more skilled and creative, it opens up all sorts of other sports arenas, sports form factors. Maybe it does move into a sort of a martial combat or like a sumo wrestling type form factor. Yeah.
Interesting. So I'd like to have like your opinion on this. So when I look at these structures and when we look at the stuff that you're doing, so I kind of have like 2 ideas of how we can go in terms of direction. So first one is more like in the aesthetic direction. There is like the Dutch artist Theo Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
These amazing wind-powered moving sculptures.
Yeah.
They look a little bit like freaky. They're just like moving.
Yeah.
This thing moves along the beach, and it's just like a magnificent thing to watch. It's just like like a fire burning. So I don't even know how to describe it. So I feel like people would be very much interested just to see it move.
Yeah.
It's kind of hypnotic to kind of look at fire, water, somebody working, and this thing moving. It's just like, because it's so unreal, so unusual, we haven't seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other direction is probably more practical. Like we see robots right now almost everywhere. Although I know that this is not technically a robot, it's just like it's still human powered, but you could use it in construction, you can use it in loading something, you can use it in, a variety of ways. So what's your take on it? Do you feel like these things are still a little bit more like moving sculptures? Is this something just exciting to watch? Or do you think that they're going to go in a more practical direction for people?
No, that's a great question. This particular machine started out as a very aesthetically driven project. It was built to create a human experience, and the novelty of that alone was rewarding. Without fail, when people see the machine move, it has such a unique mode of motion because it's human controlled. It looks like a giant newborn dinosaur as the pilot learns how to walk and balance in the machine. I've looked at old videos of myself stumbling around in it when I didn't have the same sort of proficiency I do now. And I have a young 1-year-old daughter, and I've watched her learn to walk. And there's comparables between watching myself learn to walk in the mech suit and watching her learn to walk. There's similar sort of engineering challenges. There's oscillation, there's figuring out your center of gravity. So it creates a very unique aesthetic spectacle. We actually have some footage of it where I get the 4 legs in a nice continuous gait, and it looks a lot like the Theo Jansen sculptures where there's the sort of, like a fluid phasing of legs. So I think that for a long time, I don't even know if it will ever get boring to watch these things move just from a purely aesthetic perspective. They're so sort of grand. It'd be like seeing dinosaurs in real life. The utility of it is kind of undeniable. I mean, like I said, we've already rescued our truck more than once. We load our trailer with the mech. We load the mech onto the trailer. It just climbs on itself. There's unquestionably applications in sort of search and rescue, disaster response. There's potential to be in construction, mining, forestry. I mean, we envision a future where mech suits are as ubiquitous as ATVs. So you've got high-performance sports machines doing stadium races in front of adoring crowds. You've got a more affordable sort of recreational rec mechs. You put a couple of rec mechs on the back of your Cybertruck and, tow them out to the desert and go for a rip. And then there's, industrial mechs, which are a little more heavy duty, a little more expensive, and all the way up to very specialized machines, which maybe have environmental protection for people, maybe in a firefighting context or something. And the exciting thing for us is that what we have is a motion platform that basically amplifies the creativity of the human pilot. So the applications are about as widely, the applications are about as diverse as human creativity can take them.
So let's talk about the things that kind of stop the human creativity for now. So what are the restrictions that you see? Maybe the power of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that it's very heavy. Maybe you need more production and stuff. So what are the problems that you feel like you need to solve in the next 5 years to get to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of technological evolutionary phases that we have to look forward to that will unlock far more potential than we have available right now. One is power plants. So battery technology is just going to get better and better. That's going to bring the weight down. That's going to increase the runtime. That's going to increase the available power to weight ratio of the machine. Materials are going to advance. I mean, we still have definitely not hit the peak of materials available. We need to still go all the way up to carbon fiber, 3D printed titanium. There's still a lot of potential for performance improving weight savings in the existing pantheon of materials, never mind what's going to be around in 10, 15, 20 years. So as weights come down, power levels come up, it's just going to create a far more agile and versatile machine. From the controls perspective, the control system we have is extremely responsive and sort of uniquely connects the pilot and the machine. There's nothing else out there that has that kind of real-time force and position feedback at this scale. So that's only going to get better. Valves are going to get faster, processes are going to get faster. just the mechanics of the structure of the exoskeleton and the whole feedback system is just going to get better and better from iteration to iteration. So I think those are the main things: is power plants, advanced materials, and faster control system components.
I got maybe some question about the rocket ship future or something like that. So when you think about these giant moving things that are like anthropomorphic, you mostly think about them being controlled by AI, right? You mostly think about stuff like what robotics are doing, the dancing, moving, so on, jumping, and then eventually carrying it down.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about this? Do you think that this is the direction that you're going to take, or do you want your machines just to be controlled by humans? It's kind of like, I don't know, like it's like an ethical question or just a question about the vision of the future. Like, do you see them kind of being, because if you look at AI, the way all the development now, one of the core things that they're trying to solve is basically movement. So they're teaching AI agents to move across different kind of terrain, and this is, they're making those baby steps.
Yeah.
I also have like a.
Yeah.
So I understand what it means. Like she's basically kind of this little AI agent.
Yeah.
So on from one side, it could help you optimize the machine faster, help it move more efficiently, improve the construction. On the other hand, it's like AI, it's a little bit of a different direction. So,
yeah, well, fundamentally, Exosapien Technologies is not a robotics company. We are a human augmentation company. So at the very core of our value proposition and our philosophy and our mission statement is keeping humans in the loop. Now, as AI becomes more sophisticated, we envision there could be the potential for a hybrid system. So perhaps in the way that a rider and a horse integrate, a horse is capable of being totally autonomous, but when you include the rider, they become a unified team. Like Titanfall, basically, you have this potentially, yeah, yeah. I mean, Titanfall is somewhat of an inspiration, although we are not pursuing fully autonomous machines at any point in the future. They're fundamental to what we do and fundamental to our technology is that it requires a human in the loop. So there could be, in the same way that you have like ABS on a car, so you don't skid, or traction control, that sort of implementation of artificial intelligence could intervene and augment humans' reflexes and reactions, but at no point will the control of the machine be handed over to the machine. So that, and that's central to what we want to bring to the human condition. There may come a time in 50 or 100 years where there's no humans on construction sites or forestry sites at all. And there are automated tracked vehicles, there are automated legged vehicles. That's not the business we're in. We are in the business of enhancing humans' abilities, augmenting humans' abilities, whether that's for sports, entertainment, or utilitarian purposes. That will always be central to Exosapien technology.
So can people get into these mechs and experience Exosapien right now?
That's a good question, Aaron. Yeah, if your interest is beyond just wanting to see the machines in action on the flat screen, you can actually come and visit us and have a pilot training experience. One of the things that we offer is Mech pilot training experiences. So get in touch and we can tell you the details about that. If you want to strap in for yourself and see what it's like to be a Mech pilot, that's also one of the things that we offer, is an opportunity to come in and get trained on how to be a giant. What it feels like to have a 4,000-pound body and a 200 horsepower heart.
So this is the next generation of Mech technology then. Is that what Exosapien?
Yeah, well, people talk about this being the next generation. Essentially, this is the first generation of Mech technology. There are a number of other exoskeletal or Mech-esque machines out there through history, but this is the first machine of this scale that's entirely untethered and entirely human-controlled. So we like to consider it essentially the first real mech suit, and the next generation is coming soon. This is, This is like the Wright brothers plane of mech suits, or this is like the Iron Man Mark I of mech suits.
Right. So to kind of wrap it up, if somebody's interested or wants to help or wants to learn more, the website, the YouTube channel, and any other places where we can learn more.
Yeah, if you want to learn more about what we're doing, if you want to see videos of Prosthesis, our flagship prototype in action, just search Mech Racing or Racing Mech. You will find us very quickly. Our Instagram handle is racing_mech. Same with Twitter. You can fire us an email at info@exosapien.tech. That comes straight to me. I'd be happy to answer questions or direct you to more information. Part of what we're doing is trying to build an audience for the racing experience. So by all means, follow us on social media, pipe up, say hello, tell all your friends, and let's make mech racing a reality.
Thanks for enjoying another episode of the 80 Level Roundtable podcast. Check out upcoming episodes on the 80 Level website at 80.lv. Join our career site at 80.lv/RFP. And share our podcast with friends and on your social network.